Hello and welcome to the CUFI UK podcast for Zion's sake. My name is Alastair, this is Alex.
Hello.
And in today's podcast, it's great to be back. We share our experience from the CUFI Summit in Washington, DC.
That's right. And back here in Europe, we're going to be looking at France and how Macron wants a recognition of a Palestinian state and he's trying to get the UK involved. But thankfully, it looks like those plans will not come to fruition.
That's right, let's hope not. And our Glastonbury expert here shares about the controversy of Bob Vylan and why his antisemitism is absolutely unacceptable and why it matters that we confront it. So, Alex, we haven't spoken since we returned from Washington, DC. We have spoken.
Yeah.
Let's just clarify. We are still talking to one another. Right? No, but we haven't spoken on the podcast since our visit to Washington, DC.
Yep.
We went to the CUFI Summit. Absolutely amazing event to see Christians from across the United States gather together in Washington, DC to honor Israel, celebrate Israel, and to also be fed, I would say. Yeah. Also from so many fantastic and knowledgeable speakers, joined by many from the Jewish community as well. It really did feel like it was a coming together of Christians and Jews.
Yep. And high school students and college students as well.
Yes, absolutely. I mean,
hundreds of them. Literally 300 high school students and about 200 college students, I think it was. So, yeah.
What is happening on US campuses through the work of CUFI, through students who are actually reaching out to CUFI, taking it upon themselves, inspiring their peers, forming small groups of Christian networks that are reaching out to Jews on their campus, standing shoulder to shoulder with Jewish students. It's happening throughout the United States. And it is amazing. And we got a taster of that, didn't we?
Definitely. It's something we are looking to implement here as well, to use their model and use it in the UK, because obviously a key battleground is, over the next generation is at universities, colleges, at schools.
Absolutely.
And we need to empower both Christian and Jewish students to stand together against the rising tide of hatred that's there. Because I think it's fair to say that the enemy has a grip of those institutions, and we need to.
Well, it is because that's the future. That's our future as nations, and the battleground is already there. And the anti-Semitism on US college campuses is also, very, very serious. We've seen lots of examples, especially in universities like Columbia, Harvard University, Yale, and so. Yeah, we hear all of these stories about how difficult it is for Jews on campus and Christians, in this country as well, and Jewish people in this country. I was reading a report, actually, it will be in the weekly review this week, about one Jewish student's experience in Glasgow University and about the rise of anti-Semitism on Glasgow University campus. And this is the experience of many others who we have heard from. And it would be wonderful, I agree, to see, university students, Christians. So if you're watching this podcast and you are a student that is going to be attending, or currently attending university perhaps, or are going to be attending a university and you would like to do more for standing with Israel on campus, then do reach out, because we would love to hear from you. So that was one element of it. And of course, we also heard from some of the family members of hostages, hostages who are still in captivity, the parents of a hostage who was murdered. We also heard from a former hostage whose brother is actually still in captivity. I mean, these are heart-wrenching stories.
Yeah.
And the world has gone largely silent in remembering the plight of the hostages. The fact that there are around 50 hostages that still remain. And you cannot talk about the Israel-Gaza conflict, the Israel-Hamas conflict, I should say. But you can't talk about Gaza without recognizing the fact that there are still Israeli hostages, and that is, October the 7th is what caused Israel to take, to carry out its military operation over Gaza against Hamas, and yet that has just been silenced. They talk about ceasefires, or the world does, and yet Israel is absolutely right to demand the release of hostages as part of any sort of negotiations. But the world seems to have forgotten, and to hear those families, those affected, those who have lost loved ones, and those who continue to have loved ones that are in captivity, are things that we all need to hear, and we need to continue to relay their stories and to call for their release.
Yeah, definitely. Because October the 7th was a modern day pogrom. It was a genocidal act. And if Hamas could have got hold of more Jews, they would have killed more Jews. They would have captured more Jews, etc. They wanted to. The aim of Hamas is to destroy the Jewish people, to destroy Israel. And I actually was listening to an interview by Prime Minister Netanyahu the other day, and he actually said after October 7th, a German foreign minister came to Israel, saw what Hamas had done, and he said they are no different to the Nazis. So even a German minister could recognize that. And then you fast forward a couple of years, and everyone seems to have forgotten this atrocity. But yeah, Hamas is, they are modern day Nazis. Yeah. And interestingly, actually, in the last couple of weeks, some reports, one in the UK Parliament, one from a group in Israel who presented it to the Israeli government and things, they've actually come out acknowledging the rapes and the sexual violence that took place on October the 7th. And I think on some aspects, the world is sort of recognizing the atrocities which we've been saying for the past, almost 700 days now, and what Israel has been saying, what the Jewish people have been saying. The reason these families are going around the world telling their story is because the world just doesn't care. The world doesn't seem to remember, what happened, as you said, on October 7th. And even us, even though we are involved in this on a daily basis, it's still eye-opening and sort of, it sort of re-emphasizes what we're, the reason we're doing what we're doing, because we're hearing these stories, and it just sparks that emotion that you remember from sort of October 7th and the horrors of it. And we have to keep remembering it, just as we have to keep educating our children about the Holocaust.
Yes.
Because if we forget the atrocity, we forget, what's that saying? History is doomed to repeat itself.
Well, that's why you mentioned the high schoolers. That's why the high school movement in CUFI is so important, because the next generation need to hear it. It's all right for us, doing what we're doing, which is really important, I believe, in the present. But we have to pass that down onto to the young people and get them inspired by Israel, and really to have a burden for the Jewish people, because we do have a heart and a love for God's people, which actually is something that has to be ingrained. It's not just up here; it has to be in here.
Yes, yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I think, there was obviously a whole range of people we heard from at the CUFI Summit. And by the way, I just want to point out to people watching, it's not a mysterious thing which only we get to see. Actually, we are going to be putting a lot of videos up on our YouTube channel in the next few weeks.
Absolutely.
We'll start putting them up there, so you'll be able to see. We had there was panel interviews with experts, with lawyers, with some celebrities, things like that. There was speeches by Colonel Richard Kemp, by Danny Danon, who's the UN ambassador for Israel.
Yes. And of course, Pastor Hagee.
Yeah, Pastor Hagee. Yeah.
Pastor Hagee's speech, every single time, he gives you chills down your spine when he refers to the word of God and preaches it with such authority, and yet with such a relevance, so timely, in the moment.
Yeah. And
I would encourage everyone to listen to his speech at A Night to Honor Israel.
Yeah.
And A Night to Honor Israel was a particular evening, and that was broadcast live, and it is available on our website. So please do go and have a look at that. In fact, we'll probably put a link below. in the description. And then, of course, on Thursday we had the lobbying on Capitol Hill. So there was an advocacy mission to Capitol Hill, where the delegates that are American citizens went to Capitol Hill, to where U.S. Congress is situated, and met with senators and House representatives, members of Congress, to present various policy points that we as CUFI would like to see put into effect. Now, of course, as Brits, we don't have representation in U.S. Congress, but it was a privilege to accompany our U.S. friends, our American friends, and to observe and to be, I hope, of an encouragement and really just to stand alongside. And actually, I learned an awful lot by that. I was impressed by the sort of the courage and the determination, and really just the confidence that those representing CUFI had in sitting down with representatives and saying, this is what we believe, this is what we are asking for, will you do it? Because this is why we need to stand with Israel. And really just very firmly, and I sort of took away an awful lot personally from that experience, in just understanding, like, actually we do need to have a boldness here in the UK. We don't have time just to be pushing our pens. We need to really just go for it.
I agree completely. And that's actually one of the things, because when we do our political campaigning here, it's a little bit different there. They're literally going and speaking to the main representatives, senators,
it's like
congressmen,
sitting down like you and I.
Exactly. And talking to them and telling them what they want them to do. And so it's a little bit different. But obviously, CUFI in America has a big influence and over 10 million members, that kind of thing. In the UK, we're doing it more through emails and through petitions and that sort of thing. Hopefully, we will get to that stage eventually where we're sitting down with each different member of parliament and telling them.
But by the way, can I just say, because I might forget this, anyone listening that is a resident in the UK, you can make an appointment with your member of parliament. You can meet them locally at their constituency office. These days, that's a bit harder in some constituencies, but you have a right to. So you can inquire of your local constituency office, or you can agree to meet them at their parliamentary office if you're prepared to travel to London. If you are, and likewise in Wales and in Scotland, you can also see your members of your respective parliaments as well. But you have that right. So we do actually have a right. We don't have anything organised from CUFI in terms of going en masse like they do in the United States, and that's terrific. Busloads going to Capitol Hill and saying, right, we're going to go. And so, the Texans would meet with the Texan representatives, the Missouris would meet with theirs, those in Florida would meet there. So they'd all sort of branch off into the respective representation. And we don't do anything quite like that. But what we do have these email campaigns, letter writing campaigns. And for those who feel like they are able to meet face to face, then, we'd encourage you
definitely
to make that appointment.
Pray about it and be bold, because the statement we've got at the moment is be bold as a lion for Zion. We have to be bold for Zion's sake. We cannot be silent, or we will not be silent, but we also cannot be silent. And I think this goes back as well to our campaigning. A lot of the time when we do put out a campaign on Facebook and we say write to your MP, we have a lot of people say, oh, my MP is anti-Israel, I'm not going to bother. Well, we still encourage you, please write to them. There was a man who said his MP was Jeremy Corbyn, so maybe we just need to pray for that man. No, I'm just kidding. But what I'm saying is Jeremy Corbyn. We have to pray for Jeremy Corbyn. We have to pray for our leaders, the government. But the thing is, we have to believe that we can have a positive impact, because if we're not going to do it, no one else is doing it. So we have to, as Christians, stand up for what we believe in. And I think it's more important now than ever on many issues. And obviously CUFI is a one topic organization. We are Israel, as Pastor Hagee says. And so we are only focusing on Israel, but at the same time, there's many issues. Like I think now I've probably signed more petitions and written more, letters to my MP about different things that are affecting Christians in Britain, because our government is not representing us, and not, especially, when it comes to the Israel situation, the government is going against what we believe in. They're going, they are moving to curse Israel, and we want our nation to bless Israel. We want Britain to be blessed, and we, need to stand up for that, because if we don't, no one else will.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, over the past few weeks, there's been an awful lot happen, including whilst we were actually in America. We were only in America for a couple of days.
Yeah.
And I was getting lots of messages all about Glastonbury. Glastonbury. And I'm like, I'm not interested in Glastonbury. And then suddenly realised, very quickly realised, that what was going on at Glastonbury whilst we were in America is the very epitome of why we do what we do.
Yeah.
Because what was once on the fringe, the anti-Semitism, is now very much in direct mainstream.
Yeah, exactly.
The BBC aired this coverage of Bob Vylan.
Yep.
Not Bob Dylan, as you keep correcting me. Bob Vylan, who is a villain.
Yeah.
And we need to pray for him that he will repent.
Yeah.
But this artist, this rapper, who was there spouting death to the IDF, was really speaking out a curse on Israel.
Yeah.
And very sadly broadcast nationally.
Mm.
But here we are. We're going to talk about that.
Yep.
We're going to talk about why it is wrong and
Yep.
why it should concern us, because, he also has an audience particularly among young people who are very influenced by some of these artists. And Bob Vylan has doubled down on his views. He certainly, despite some of the misleading headlines last week saying that he's now not, he's not going to be doing it.
Yeah, the headlines last week were saying that, he was saying to his audience, don't chant that, you'll get me in trouble. And they were making out that he was like toning down his message, but actually he was doubling down, because he gave a long speech afterwards about saying how, what's going on is a, genocide, all the different sort of narratives which are just fake news, basically. But if we go back to his original instance where he said he chanted death to the IDF, and here we say, this is something you coined, and it's bless the IDF.
Yeah, bless the IDF.
Yeah. And so, basically the reason that's problematic is because the IDF is basically every Israeli who is an adult.
Yeah.
Israel has conscription. Most of the IDF are actually reservists. So even now, when you see, soldiers in Gaza, sort of thing, the reservist forces in Gaza are actually, doctors, lawyers, electricians, engineers, all these different things. Like, they're just general, normal people who are having to defend their country against genocidal maniacs, right?
Most of them are very young.
Yeah.
They've just left school.
Yeah. Or some of them are early adults with children.
Adults,
and like they don't want to be in a war zone, and they are definitely not committing genocide. They are defending their homeland in one of the most humane one of the most humane wars they can fight.
Yes. If you imagine, for example, the soldiers that were conscripted to World War II.
Yeah, exactly.
And, you're saying, oh, no, I don't mean the British when they're saying for death to the British. I just mean the soldiers. No, they are British. They are
exactly
representing the country. They are ordinary people in uniform. And let's be honest, even those who are professional military, is like, you should not be calling for the death of, innocent people. But there were 329 IDF soldiers that were murdered on October the 7th.
Yeah.
Most of them were in their pajamas in bed.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hamas does not distinguish between IDF soldiers in uniform, IDF soldiers not in uniform, or civilians.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, they see them as Jews.
Yeah,
they see them as Israelis. They see them as Jews. And Bob Vylan knows, because he's not as dumb as what I think we might otherwise think. Okay, he knows that he can't say Jews, he can't say Israelis, but he thinks he can get away with saying the IDF. Well, he means Jews.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry, he does.
He does. And the thing is, afterwards, I mean, excuse the language, but after he said that, he said, hell yeah, from the river to the sea, Palestine must be, will be, inshallah, it will be free. So, he didn't just say death to the IDF. He said, from the river to the sea, wipe out Israel, genocidal call to wipe out Israel in its entirety. And he also said, inshallah, which is, I didn't know he was a Muslim. And in fact, I've sort of Googled it. I'm not even sure he is. But that sounds like that's the sort of rhetoric you hear from Islamist extremists.
Is an Islamic phrase.
Well, that is an Islamic phrase, yeah. But what I'm saying is when I Googled, is he a Muslim, it didn't come up with anything. Well, so what I'm saying, though, is he used an Islamic, like the Islamists say that. They want to wipe out the Jews, and Allah willing, they'll achieve it. So all I'm trying to say is it is far deeper than just simply, we oppose a military force. He wants to see the Jewish state wiped off the face of the earth.
And also shows how problematic those who are on the left and are being militant, I should say, militant left, are adopting these Islamist phrases, this Islamist mentality, and is really just contributing to the Islamization of this nation.
Yeah, exactly. And that actually brings on to another point, because obviously Palestine Action, one of the things that happened over since the last podcast was Palestine Action has been outlawed because they attacked the planes in RAF. Brize Norton, that's the one. And so even, this week there was ramming where 3 Palestine Action people were arrested because they rammed a truck into a gate. But it is this sort of mentality that
it was the gate of a company which apparently produces parts for the Israeli army.
Okay, so either way, they were terrorizing it by ramming a truck into it.
Which is important because that in itself is a terrorist attack, irrespective of who they were representing.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. And the thing is, Palestine Action have targeted synagogues and Jewish businesses in North London. They literally went around one night spraying and vandalizing, Jewish-owned places. It wasn't anything to do with, whether they have military contracts or whatever. These are, supermarkets and synagogues. It is sort of what is it, like peaceful activism? Even though it's not peaceful, but they're promoting themselves, probably to themselves. They're trying to convince themselves that they are for peace and love and all the rest of it, but actually they end up attacking Jews.
Yes.
And it's the same with Bob Vylan. He's sort of there saying, we're there for the Palestinians, and instead he's calling for the destruction of the world's only Jewish state. It's like anti-Semitism. I think a lot of people who are under the sort of spell of anti-Semitism, like honestly, are hoodwinked by it, and they don't realize just how sort of Nazi-ish they've become in what they're doing. But I think, going back to what you were saying, though, about the attitudes of them and, the Islamization and those sorts of things, I think there is a real problem where Palestine Action, where the people on the streets, chanting death to Israel and all the rest of it, they see Israel and the Jewish people as Nazis, even though they themselves are Nazis. They've warped in their minds their view of Jews, of Zionists, of Christians who support them, of the governments, and they see themselves as these like freedom fighters fighting against injustice and they're the good people and everyone else is evil kind of thing.
Yeah.
And when you get into that mindset, it warps everything about you. And that's why as Christians, we have to be so careful because, and the Bible teaches us, love your enemies, bless those who curse you, pray for those who sin against you. Like if we start to turn all of our enemies into like these demonic figures in our minds, we will start to hate them. And actually, we're not called to hate them. At the same time, you always tell me that we have to confront evil and we have to stand up against, the enemies of God. And so we have to make sure that we, have this balance where we love our enemies, but at the same time, we must never allow evil to gain a foothold anywhere. We have to stand up against it. Yeah. Because if we don't, then we are enabling evil.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, and I also, understand the instruction to love our enemies is, in terms of those who hurt us, those who offend us, those who are in disagreement with, those who are, are in opposition to us, etc. But that is because that's for our benefit. That's because actually we are to understand the amazing grace and forgiveness of God. And if we can't forgive others, then actually how can we really understand the forgiveness? And that's a command. I mean, it's not just but we can't understand that. And so that's sort of my understanding. But, evil is so serious and evil is so great that as Christians, we believe that Jesus Christ died and rose again to defeat death, to conquer evil.
Yep.
And we believe that one day Satan will be made a footstool.
Yeah.
And will be ultimately defeated. Why? Because, evil is to be taken seriously.
Yep.
We need to understand that it's part of the spiritual battle between light and darkness. But how we respond to those who are defined as our enemies is actually also part of God wanting the best for us. And when Israel acts like it does militarily, it isn't out of a hatred for people. No. It isn't out of, a hate-filled warfare like its enemies are doing. They are taking out the infrastructure of that evil in order to remove the threat against it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that is a huge contrast and helps us to really understand the light and darkness in this conflict and who is actually on the side of the Bible.
Yeah. Who's on the side of good and who's on the side of evil.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that just shows the difference. And I think this as well, like I do believe Israel is a good force for good in this world. And I think it also shows the way Israel is acting. Because if Israel hated its enemies, Gaza wouldn't exist. The Palestinian people would have been wiped out by now. But Israel doesn't hate its enemies. On the flip side, Hamas hates Israel. And, that saying always, has always said, if Israel put down its weapon, or if Hamas put down the weapons, there'll be no more war. If Israel puts down its weapons, there'll be no more Israel. It is a contrast because it is a war between good and evil. It is definitely a battle versus good, of good versus evil. But I think as well, like what you're saying, when it's like, when Jesus taught us about loving your enemies, it's a personal thing so you don't get corrupted with that same evil and become evil yourself, you see? And so, I think it's, a powerful thing, but it's interesting because I do think sometimes people misunderstand us when we are supporting Israel at war because we're supporting the IDF defending the Jewish people because, Israel cannot sit around singing campfire songs, singing Kumbaya because their enemies will come and behead them. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? It's like Israel has to defend itself. God understands human nature better than any of us. He created us, and God understands that sometimes we have to be like David, where we worship God, and sometimes we have to be David, where we slay Goliath. You see, and we go to war and we fight against evil, and that's what we have to do as Christians.
Yes,
and so
I would say it's still a form of worship. Okay, I might just get cut, but anyway, maybe what you meant to say was that there's a time when David should be by the campfire on his harp singing Kumbaya, and there's other times where he needs to be on the battlefield defeating Goliath. Anyway, on to a less controversial issue: France.
Yep.
Regarding Emmanuel Macron,
yep,
who was given the platform in Westminster at the Houses of Parliament, and from the platform, again, gave his support to France recognising a Palestinian state.
Yep.
And he's looking for support from Britain, looking for support from other allies as well.
Yeah, Canada.
Now, there's a UN summit which is taking place at the end of this month. Should have been earlier in the month. It's been postponed. It's a UN summit in New York City about the recognition of a Palestinian state.
Yep.
I mean, they already say call the state of Palestine, don't they?
Yeah.
But they're having a summit because what they're trying to do is to give it more legitimacy by trying to get more members to recognize something which doesn't actually exist.
Yep, and should not exist.
Yeah. Now,
and that's not calling for wiping out Palestinians, by the way. That's just saying the land of Israel belongs to the Jewish people, and any Arab living in Israel has equal rights because Israel is a democracy, and so on and so forth.
No,
you see what I'm saying? Because obviously when the anti-Israel people say from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, they literally mean removing all the Jews, just as any Palestinian state like Gaza, for example, they removed all the Jews and didn't allow them there.
Palestinian territory, you mean?
Yes. Yes. Not a Palestinian state, because there should not be a Palestinian state.
Because what they are trying to do is to introduce this into our language so that when we do a slip of the tongue like that, which no one noticed until I just pointed it out, is that they're trying to make us believe in the existence of a Palestinian state, and they will do anything and everything possible to undermine Israel's sovereignty.
Yeah.
And the thing is that any ceasefire should be peace in exchange for peace. Not peace, not land, in exchange for peace. And where Macron has got it wrong, he's got a few other things wrong as well, but we'll just focus on this, is that it would suggest that he thinks that peace can be achieved by the Palestinians being rewarded, and I'll use the word rewarded, land, whereas actually they haven't been good custodians of the land which has been occupied by the Palestinians.
Yeah.
Hamas should never, ever, ever have an opportunity to control any piece of that land.
No, exactly.
No other Palestinian entity that supports terrorism, that pays the families of terrorists historically, should be given that. No Palestinian entity that does not recognize the state of Israel or agrees in any way with the jihadist mindset of those who have, funded Hamas and other Palestinian terrorist organizations, they should not be given leadership. So now is not the time.
Yeah.
It would be rewarding Palestinian terrorism. And also, the Bible warns against dividing the land.
Yeah.
And so we should really be praying that Macron will certainly drop this idea. But also, he's been trying to get Britain, his pal, Monsieur Starmer, to stand with him, because they seem to be making decisions as a united front. And actually, Britain needs to not have any association with that. And it does look as though so far Starmer has not, he's not given in, he's not conceded.
Yeah, exactly.
To Macron's demands, and we need to pray that will continue.
Definitely. And so, for anyone watching, we do actually have a campaign at the moment, which is No State for Jew Hate, because we do not think the Palestinians should be rewarded with the state. My personal view is there should be no other state in that land at all, ever, apart from a Jewish state, obviously, because that's what the Bible says. And that's what we believe here at CUFI as well. And so, No State for Jew Hate, we are calling on the government to not recognise the Palestinian state, to not concede to the demands of the terrorists and so forth. I think actually it is working. I hope our campaign has actually had a bit of an impact, but also I think there's been, from what I've read in reports, there's been pressure from the United States, strong pressure saying, if you do this, this will be an absolute slap in the face to America and to President Trump. And I think a lot of world leaders realize and understand that if you are going to do something like that, it will affect you economically and in other areas, because President Trump won't stand for it if something like that happens. So I do think there's a strong opposition there, where President Trump has been putting on forceful sort of opposition to it behind the scenes. And we've actually heard that maybe the UK and Canada have actually said to France, actually, you need to slow down on your plans here and stop. And there is even talk that Macron is not even going to go to this summit that's happening at the end of the month now. It's still not confirmed whether he's going or not. But there is sort of rumours that he won't be going, because I think Macron's big plan was that he was going to get a load of nations, or at least Canada and the UK, on board with him, and together they would go to this summit and announce, recognition of a Palestinian state from the UK, from France, from Canada. And I think it's all fallen flat, and so I think he's kind of, exiting out of it with his tail between his legs, kind of thing. Which is a good thing, because ultimately anyone who is trying to split the land is going against God, and that is not a good thing, because as the Bible says, I'll bless those who bless you, I will curse those who curse you. God says in Zechariah, I think it is, that he will judge the nations based on how they have treated God's people and how they have divided up the land. And recognition of a Palestinian state divides the heartland of Israel in two. Judea and Samaria becomes part of a Palestinian state. Jerusalem gets divided down the middle. All of the main holy sites, from the Temple Mount to Joseph's tomb to the Western Wall, etc., the Mount of Olives, all of those places suddenly become Palestinian, and the Jews have no rights to their holy sites, let alone, the land which God gave them, sort of thing. So it is a slap in the face to the Jewish people, a slap in the face to God, who decreed that land and that land alone is going to be for the Jewish people. And it's that sort of thing where, I mean, we know what's happening in the world is biblical. The nations are turning against Israel, and we know that we should expect these things. But at the same time, as Christians, we have to stand up for what is right. And that means, defending God in every area. And that's why we have to use our voices
absolutely.
to stand up to it.
Absolutely. And you also mentioned just at the start of this section about, Israel being a nation where the Arab people have full and equal rights as that of Jews. And that's really important, remember, because when we talk about one state, Jewish state, the nation of Israel, it's actually meaning that all those who do make Israel their home, are able to live safely and securely. And yet, what is the alternative? What's being proposed, this so-called two-state solution, talking about a state which will most likely not even recognize Israel and the Jewish people, or those who lead it. It will be a place where it's probably very likely Jews will not be able to live safely and securely.
It'll be an apartheid state.
It would be.
Yes, exactly.
I've heard that somewhere. It would be absolutely an apartheid state. So actually, what people like Macron are recommending is completely unrealistic. It is unfair, and it is unbiblical,
and goes against Western values, the values they claim to uphold.
They claim to uphold.
Yes,
and also, the Bible talks about Jerusalem being a heavy stone, that those who try and heave it away will be injured or broken into pieces.
Exactly.
There is a warning, and there's a warning really to every nation in terms of how it treats Jerusalem, how it handles Jerusalem. Really, it is not for France. France is not entitled to determine the future of the land of Israel, just as Britain isn't. I think historical record does demonstrate mistakes that have been made both by, the British overseeing as well as the French overseeing in that region. And France really needs to, not get involved.
Yeah,
and let
exactly.
Israel determine its own future and secure its own borders. Israel needs the support of France. It does not need France and Britain to really do what is not in Israel's interests.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think, it's not in Israel's interest. It's not in France's interest, because if France was to recognize the Palestinian state, then God would, God would have something to say, and God will probably do something about that. And I think as well, like, France has its own issues to resolve.
Yeah.
Just going back to one of our original stories of Bob Vylan, one of the responses from the UK government, from Wes Streeting, was telling Israel, before you complain about this, get your house in order.
That was absolutely
and all this stuff.
Appalling.
Yeah, exactly. And he said about how, Israel's actions are making it hard for us to be friends with Israel, which is absolutely ridiculous. When you actually look at the reality, Israel's actions are making the Middle East more friendly to Israel. Saudi Arabia, UAE, and so forth are quietly thanking Israel for taking out Hamas and for taking out Iran and the nuclear threat of Iran. Anyway, but going back to that, it goes to this, what's happening in France. France needs to get its house in order.
Yes.
A judge this week ruled that all Palestinians have a right to... All Palestinians living in Gaza, I should say.
A judge in France.
A judge in France, yeah. He's ruled that all Palestinians living in Gaza can claim legal asylum in France, which gives them an open door to France, by the sound of it.
Oh, great. That's all they need.
yeah, exactly.
I mean, can you imagine the judge will go to Macron and he'll say, I've got some good news and some bad news. The good news is that we've established a Palestinian state.
Yeah.
The bad news is that it's in France. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's not the two-state solution that Macron was thinking about.
Not quite.
No, exactly. France needs to get its house in order. And also the UK does as well. And so that's why we need to keep, pressing and pushing back against the government and holding them to account, especially in how they handle Israel and deal with the Jewish people.
Absolutely. Well, we all need to get our house in order.
Yeah,
really,
exactly.
because, the church in Britain needs to get its house in order.
Definitely.
Right? And we appreciate the fact that we are surrounded by Christians that are part of CUFI that have gotten their house in order because they've read the Bible.
Exactly.
And they've read what the Bible says about, I will bless those that bless you. I will curse those curse you. And we want to bless Israel. And as we bless Israel, our house will be blessed. Our nation will be blessed. Our families will be blessed. Our churches will be blessed, I believe.
Yeah.
So, we look at Macron, we have a little bit of a joke because it is so crazy, right?
Yeah.
But actually, deep down, it is a symptom of a present leadership, particularly in Europe and in Britain, that really has no moral compass and understanding when it comes to Israel and how we as a nation should be treating, nations should be treating Israel. Because the Bible says that one day all the nations will be gathered and will be judged based on how Israel and the Jewish people have been treated.
Yeah.
So we really need to pray that there will be a holding back of some of these plans that seek to undermine and delegitimize Israel, and that we might be a true and loyal friend of Israel, an unconditional friend. What really troubles me about what the Labour minister said, remind me of his name,
Wes
Streeting, was that, rather than at that moment of opportunity, and it was a good opportunity, I mean, it was a bad thing, but it was an opportunity that presented itself to really say, we do not align, we do not stand with this. This is completely unacceptable for our allies for Death for Our Allies to be front and center on mainstream television on a stage which has such a large audience and wide reputation. It's unacceptable. We will not tolerate anti-Semitic speech, whether it be on the stage or on the pavements, on our streets or anywhere. In our schools, in our universities, in our mosques, wherever it is, anti-Semitism needs to be stamped out. He didn't say that.
No.
Instead, he said, I think Israel needs to get its own house in order first. What?
Yeah.
Right?
I know.
It is absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah.
And so it is a sign that there is something very troubling underneath the surface, because it shows that there is a conditional friendship for Israel, not an unconditional one. It's conditional based on Israel's actions or Israel's perceived actions, or to put it another way, propaganda against Israel. It's completely conditional. What we want is unconditional friendship with Israel. That does not mean that Israel can do anything it wants. No, it doesn't. But we've come to the conclusion that Israel is doing and wants what is right. And our government should be able to see that and should be able to say that, you know what, no matter what lies and filth is thrown against you, no matter what you have to go through, no matter what the threat is, we will stand with you. And stand with Israel in that sense unconditionally, not saying, well, actually, you need to sort this out first. No. That's not how a proper ally acts. And so we want to see things change. And through Christians United for Israel, we are doing everything that we can to be able to speak the truth to those that are in our leadership in this country, those in Westminster. We want to see a revival within the church of a change of heart towards Israel, an unconditional love and support for Israel, just as God has called us to do. We just want to acknowledge the importance of the support of all CUFI UK supporters. We would not be able to do what we do without your prayers, without your participation in our campaigns, without your donation towards the ministry. And if you would like to support CUFI further, then we invite you to please consider becoming a partner by making a monthly donation towards the work. You can do so by visiting www.cufi.org.uk/donate. And there's also an opportunity to make a one-off donation and also consider becoming a partner through the regular donation. All support is greatly appreciated and is very much needed as we seek to do even more in standing with Israel and ensuring that Britain does the right thing in getting its house in order by standing with Israel and the Jewish people. So thank you very much for your support. Also, if you have any comments about any of the topics we have discussed in today's podcast, then please do leave a comment in the section below, in the comments section. Let us know your thoughts. We would love to hear from you. Also, please like this podcast, hit share on social media, and give us a thumbs up. We would really appreciate that because it helps this podcast go even further. And hit the subscribe as well if you would like to receive notifications about future videos from CUFI UK. But for now, it's time to say goodbye until next time, when we hope you will join us for another podcast for Zion's sake. But until then, may the Lord be with you and bless you. Bye-bye.